All right, let's dive into an idea that is honestly a total game changer for how you look at your biggest challenges. We're talking about the difference between complicated and complex problems. And trust me, once you get this, it's the key to finally getting unstuck.
You know that feeling, right? Where you're just throwing everything you have at a problem, all your energy, all your brain power, and it just won't budge. It feels like you're spinning your wheels in the mud. It's not just frustrating, it can make you feel like you're failing.
But here's a thought. What if it's not you at all? What if you're not the problem? Maybe you're just using the wrong kind of tool for the job. It's kind of like trying to perform surgery with a hammer. It doesn't matter how hard you swing, you're just using the wrong approach.
And that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole thing. The big reveal is that not all hard problems are the same. They really fall into two totally different buckets: complicated problems and complex problems. And once you see this difference, you will start seeing it everywhere.
Now, the key thing to get here is that this isn't about difficulty. A complicated problem isn't necessarily easier than a complex one. Nope. The real difference is all about predictability. Complicated problems are like a high-end watch, tons of moving parts, but they all follow set rules. Complex problems? They're more like a rainforest, alive, always changing, and full of surprises.
So let's break that down. A complicated problem, think of something like fixing a broken bone or even preparing a really intricate tax return. Yeah, it requires a ton of specialized knowledge. You definitely want an expert for that. But there's a clear process. You follow the steps, apply the formula, and you get a result you can count on.
Complex problems, though, are a whole other beast. The classic example? Raising a child. There is no instruction manual that guarantees success, right? No formula. What works one day might totally backfire the next. It's a living, breathing system where you can only really understand why something happened by looking back.
Okay, so let's make this real. Once you start looking for this pattern, this distinction between complicated and complex, you're going to see it pop up all over your own life. In your health, your work, your relationships, everywhere.
Let's start with physical health. A broken bone is complicated. A doctor sets it, it goes in a cast, and it heals. There's an endpoint. But managing something like chronic pain, that's complex. It's not a problem you solve. It's an ongoing process of experimenting, learning, and adapting.
We see the exact same pattern in mental health. If you have a specific phobia, like a fear of spiders, there are incredibly effective step-by-step treatments. It's a complicated but solvable issue. But healing from something like complex trauma, that's a journey. It's nonlinear, and it requires a flexible, evolving approach.
And oh boy, what about relationships? Learning a specific communication skill, like I statements, that's complicated. You can learn the rule and apply it, but actually building deep, lasting trust with someone over years, that's a complex dance. It's about thousands of tiny moments and constant adaptation.
And finally, think about your career. Getting a professional certification? That's a complicated task. There's a curriculum, an exam, and a finish line. But building a genuinely fulfilling career that evolves with you? That's complex. It's a mix of careful planning, lucky breaks, and adapting to unexpected opportunities.
So, what's the big deal? Why does getting this wrong matter so much? Well, because when you treat a complex problem like it's just complicated, it's a recipe for burnout, frustration, and failure. The consequences are very real. When we mismatch our approach, we end up paying a huge price. We pour our time, our money, and our energy into plans that are doomed from the start. Our attempts to control an uncontrollable situation can actually make things worse, creating new problems. We miss out on the chance to try a different, more experimental approach that could have worked. And maybe worst of all, is the psychological toll it takes on us. And this is where it really hits home, because when our perfectly crafted plans fall apart, we usually don't blame the plan. We blame ourselves. We tell ourselves we're not smart enough, not disciplined enough, not trying hard enough. It's this horrible downward spiral of shame and self-doubt, and it all stems from just misdiagnosing the nature of the problem.
So the question is, how do we break out of that cycle? The answer is by building a new problem-solving toolkit, one that has the right set of tools for each type of challenge.
For those complicated problems, the playbook is sense, analyze, respond. First, you sense what's going on by gathering all the data. Then, you analyze that data, probably with the help of an expert. And finally, you respond by executing a precise, detailed plan. It's all about control and expertise.
But for complex problems, you have to toss that playbook right out the window. The strategy here is probe, sense, respond.
You can't predict the outcome, so you probe the system with small, safe-to-fail experiments. Then you sense what happens, you pay close attention to the feedback, and based on that, you respond by adjusting your approach and trying the next small thing. It's about learning and adapting, not planning.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but here's the million-dollar question, right? How on earth do you know which kind of problem you're looking at before you're already neck deep in it?
Well, you can ask yourself 3 really simple but clarifying questions. First, can I fix this? Is there a known solution or a clear path forward? If the answer is yes, it's probably complicated. If the answer is no, you move to question 2. Should I put up with it? In other words, is this a situation that requires ongoing management and adaptation, not a one-time fix? That's a huge clue that you're in complex territory. And finally, there's always the third question: should I walk away? Sometimes that's the smartest move of all.
So when you boil it all down, what you're left with isn't just a clever management theory. It's a really practical framework for being wiser in a world that is, let's face it, pretty darn complex.
Because the truth is, most of our big challenges in life are a messy blend of both. Think about starting a business. The accounting and legal paperwork, that's complicated. But building an amazing team culture where people thrive, that is deeply complex. Real wisdom is being able to see the difference and knowing when to pull out the blueprint and when to pull out the compass.
And that really is the ultimate takeaway. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a problem, I want you to just pause, stop asking yourself if it's hard or easy. Instead, ask a better question. What kind of hard am I facing? Just answering that one question correctly can change everything. It'll point you to the right strategy, save you from a world of pain, and light up the path forward. Thanks for watching.